Welcome to the Monday, April 20th, 2015, regular meeting of the Glendale Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission. Roll call, please.
Commissioners Kalfayan?
Here.
Khan is absent. Sharkey?
Here.
Wu?
Present.
President Fuad.
Here.
The agenda for the April 20th, 2015 regular meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on or before Friday, April 17, 2015. Item 2, upcoming council agenda items.
Yes, President Fuad, members of the Commission, next Tuesday on April 28th, we have a joint City Council Housing Authority meeting scheduled at 3 in the afternoon. That is for a motion to approve the fiscal year 2015-16 Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Home Annual Plan, in addition to the fiscal year 2015-2020 5-year consolidated plan, and to authorize staff to submit those plans to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. In total, between those three grant programs, that totals $2,611,000 coming to the city of Glendale. Also on April 28th in the evening at the City Council meeting, we have a resolution of appropriation to appropriate $110,000 in Los Angeles County CalWorks funding for youth employment, and the motion to award $103,870 in those funds to the Glendale Youth Alliance as recommended by the Verdugo Workforce Investment Board, and that is scheduled as a consent item. Also on the consent calendar, we have a motion to approve submission of the initial application to the State of California for the designation as a local workforce investment board in light of new federal legislation which is changing the way that boards operate, and that is also a consent item. On May 5th, we have a resolution to adopt plans and specifications for Riverwalk Phase 2, which is very exciting, and authorize the city clerk to advertise for bids, and that is scheduled as a consent item, and the total estimated cost of that project is $1.5 to $1.7 million. Also on May 5th, we have another resolution to adopt plans and specifications for exterior improvements to the Civic Auditorium, which are comprised of exterior paint, new awnings at the south entrance, which is the sunny side, and a refurbished existing exterior light fixtures on the building, and that's at an estimated cost of $250,000 to $275,000. On May 12th, we have a proclamation designating May as Older Americans Month. Then we have an ordinance for introduction for lease for cell towers, one at Fremont Park and one at Shoal Canyon Ballfield, which you will hear more about today. And so far, that's all we've got scheduled.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next is item 3, introductions and presentations at A, annual volunteer recognition.
Good afternoon, President Fuad, members of Commission. My name is Walter Alvarez, and I am currently the volunteer coordinator for our department. And it gives me great pleasure to be here today to present our annual report on the volunteer program from the period of March 1st, 2014 through February 28th, 2015. That covers 1 year period. And just like to say that this year, many of our volunteers have been very committed to our programs. They've done an outstanding job providing many hours of service to the community in various of our programs, in our senior meals program, our senior recreation program, as well as the trails and open space program through and maintaining some of our trails, our Riverwalk program, our the other one also including the sports complex program. And this year, the National Volunteer Week was commemorated the week of April 18th, 12th through the 18th, where the theme of volunteers are our greatest natural resource. So it's very fitting that, it falls this year with our department because, the line of work we're in, always trying to do our best to the community and providing natural resources in our open spaces and whatnot in our department. And today, I like to acknowledge volunteers who contributed 100+ hours to our program for the period of the year I just mentioned. There's approximately 35 volunteers who contributed 100+ hours. Unfortunately, because in the middle of the day, not many of them are able to make it here today, but we have a number of them that are here, and I would like to call them up and acknowledge them properly. And at the same time, also make mention of the other ones who weren't here today, because I really would like to mention their names as well. So the total number of hours they contributed throughout the year was 13,263 hours of manpower. That converts to, if we take an hourly rate of about $12 per hour, that's an equivalent of 127,687 hours of that we are able to save, and they're able to contribute to our programs. And really, I really say they help us a lot within our programs. They're just not out there doing minor things. They really help us a lot, our staff. So with that, I like to actually call them up individually as they come up, and then just kind of make mention of the programs they're working in as they come up. So President Fod, if you could help me out with this, that'd be great. And with that, the first name I'd like to call up is Yervan Sarabian. If you could come up, Yervan. And Yervan works in our senior programs. And again, 100+ hours.
Congratulations.
Yervan.
Thank you.
The other one I'd like to mention is Radavu Bakshi. Haran Amerikanian. Program.
Thank you.
And Akob, if you could come up. I missed his last name. Akob. Sorry, Akob. In the senior meals programs as well. Christine Sargisian. Oh, she's not able to make it today, but she's one that contributed many hours. The other one is Norik Haratunian within the senior meals program. And I believe Serene, is Serene here today? If she could come up. Serene, also in the senior program. Okay. And now I'd like to call up the folks who are doing a great job in our Trails and Open Space program and doing the Duke Major and Wilderness Park cleanup, as well as the Riverwalk cleanup projects. Without them, our parks wouldn't be as beautiful as they are, and our open spaces wouldn't be as they are. They really help Mark a lot with that program. So I'd like to acknowledge Lizzie first. Lizzie Sheehy, if she could come up. Thank you, Lizzie. And the next one is, I believe I have Anne McNeil. Come on up. Last but not least, Roberta Medford. Come on up. Okay, and that concludes the participants that are able to be here today. Thank you for being here and joining us. But I'd like to really acknowledge also the rest of the people who weren't here today. It's very fitting that they also get acknowledged. For example, Nick Gonzalez, he works in our senior meals program, and he contributed an amount of 2,300 hours for the year. I mean, that is about 45 hours of volunteer hours that he is putting into our programs, including Saturdays. 45, I did the math, 45 hours a week. That is an insane amount of hours. The other one is Margaret Urinsky, Irma Olsen, Rita. Oh, Irma, come on up. Irma Olsen. I'm sorry, we missed. You want to get Irma Olsen?
Sorry, he'll come up and hand it to her.
Last minute VIP. Thank you, Irma.
Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
let's have a picture.
Thank you, Irma.
Yes.
Hold on, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Irma.
My smile is going.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, I hope that's it. Now, Rita, if Rita's here, Carranza, Terry Balaman, Olga Guevara, Teresa Pimentel, Amy Dene, and also in the sports complex program section, Richard Hover. And the CVDG program as well had a few volunteers this year, Karen Ugarte and Narine Azangolian. That contributed 100 plus hours. But most of these folks really contribute way beyond that. So really, really great job that they do for us. And I'm really proud to be part of this program and seeing them be, contributing as much as they do. It gives me great honor to mention that. With that, that concludes my presentations, unless there's any questions from the commissioners.
I think the commission joins everybody in great job. The volunteers, we certainly welcome their help and their contributions. And did you want to say something?
I do. I just wanted to say something on behalf as Vice President of the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation. We help fund the Trails and Open Space, and I wanted to thank the volunteers, including Mark Sturdivant, for making us look good. So thank you for that. And Walter, I can't thank you enough for your leadership as well.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, definitely.
Just last announcement, volunteers, at the end of this, we're going to have a small ceremony in the lobby. So if you guys escape early, you're welcome to join us as well. So with that, we'll see them down at the lobby and taking in the goods. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 4 is commission staff comments.
Commissioners? You again? Okay.
I'll just wait till everybody kind of calms down here.
I'll get the thing.
Okay, I have 2 save the dates. Coming up May 3rd, to benefit Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation, is our 10K Run the Verdugos. Again, that's on May 3rd. We are 100 registrations ahead from where we were last year. We're expecting well over 800 people. And I'll just wait till it quiets down a little more here. They want food. So if you're interested in running or hiking and taking on a mountain, again, that's May 3rd. And for more information, runtheverdugos.com. And then on May 15th is our Glendale Dodger Night. We have over 600 seats available for all in the same area for Glendale. Last year, year before, so much fun. You'll be so surprised to walk through and see how many people you know. So for more information on that, that's Glendale Dodger Night, May 15th, fireworks after the game, and hope to see you there. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Does staff have any comments?
Yes, President Fuad, members of the commission, I just want to announce that the pickleball courts at Pacific Community Center are up and running. First week in April, we went ahead and installed or painted 3 courts at Pacific. This is our pickleball group. We have about 15, 20 active pickleball players using the facility. They have their own Facebook page too, called Glendale Pickleball. They're posting, pictures and videos of them playing. There are some teens that are interested in playing also. So these players are, giving mini instructions to the kids, and they're all having a great time. Just to review, I know I presented this last meeting, but the pickleball program is Mondays and Thursdays during spring and summer season between 5 and 8 p.m., and then Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., which is drop-in, and then Saturdays year-round, 9 a.m. to 12. All participants will need to have an activity card, and then basically everything will be set up for all the participants. So staff at Pacific will be setting up whenever pickleball players come in and drop in. So we are really excited, and I know the pickleball players are really excited too. And hopefully the program will grow, and we'll have all 3 courts full, 4 hours, 3 hours a day. So if you have any questions regarding
thank you. Now, the
pickleball.
times, one of them says drop-in. Are the other times scheduled for team play, or what?
Mondays and Thursdays at night, evening, they wanted 2 evenings per week.
Yeah. Is
So
that quote drop-in, or is that scheduled?
it's scheduled.
Okay.
So it's scheduled, and the equipment is going to be set up if there are players, if there are no players. So either way, we're going to have the equipment set up. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 12. If there's a group that wants to come in and they just come in unannounced, we'll have staff go out there and help them set up. And then Saturday year-round. So basically Mondays and Thursdays, 5 to 8, and Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 12. It will be set up for the participants. And then Monday through Thursday, 9 to 12, year-round, it'll be set up on an as-needed basis.
Any comments?
Quick question. Where would one get an activity card?
Activity card is sold at any of our community centers. Under 18, it's free. Ages 18 through 59 is $25 a year. And then 60 and over is $10 a year. So they just sign up. It's basically like a membership. They can sign up and then sign the liability form, and we have that on file for 1 year. So,
Anything else? Next item, please.
I actually have an announcement. Good afternoon, President Fahd and Commission and staff. My name is Eileen Asayan. I'm the Program Coordinator for Senior Services. I am here to invite you to our 90-plus birthday celebration, which will take place May 21st from 10 to 1 p.m. The invitations have been passed out. We'd like you guys to, join us for the fun activities that we have for our seniors. Thank you.
And President Fuad, members of the commission, I also wanted to highlight some of our upcoming events in our department.
Please.
On Friday, May 1st, 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., we're going to have a parents' night out at Spar Heights Community Center. On Saturday, May 2nd, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., a medicinal plant hike at Duke-Majan Wilderness Park. On Sunday, May 3rd, as was announced earlier, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., Verdugo Mountains 10K Trail Run and Hike at Brand Park. On Monday, May 4th, registration for summer day camps begins. Thursday, May 7th, 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., the seniors are having their Mother's Day luncheon at the Adult Recreation Center and Spar Heights Community Center. On Friday, May 8th, 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., we're having another Parents' Night Out, this time at Pacific Community Center. On Saturday, May 9th, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're having a Riverwalk Work Day. Friday, May 15th, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. is Glendale Dodger Night. Saturday, May 16th, registration for the aquatics programs and classes begins. And we also have, on that same day, Experimental Forest Work Day at Duke-Majan. And for more information, you can call our administration office at 818-548-2000.
Thank you. And next item.
Next item is item 5, oral communications. I do not have any cards.
Okay, next.
Item 6, consent items. At A, approval of the minutes of the Commission special meeting held on February 9th, 2015.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve.
I will second it.
Commissioners Kalfayan?
Yes.
On his absence, Sharkey?
Yes.
Wu?
Abstain.
President Fuad.
Yes. Next item.
Item 7, action items. At 8, contracted park security patrol services. At 1, motion to note and file a report regarding contracted park security patrol services.
So, good afternoon, President Fuad, members of the Commission. The report in front of you asks your approval to note and file a report on our approach to take patrol security company on contract to conduct patrols at our park facilities. Some of you may be aware we used to have seasonal laborers that conducted our park closures. Actually, pre the seasonal laborers, we used to have the park ranger program, and they supported with the park closing. There was a little bit of a gap without any closure, and we experienced a higher level of vandalism, graffiti or such in the restrooms. So we took the approach of hiring seasonal laborers who are hourly, part-time workers that we trained in closing the park facilities. And the past several years, 7 years, I believe, has been that we had seasonal laborers lock our park facilities at night. Typically, as a seasonal laborer, they're not peace officers. They're not trained in conducting policing and patrolling necessarily. They were mainly locking park facilities. And with the increase of activity in some parts that we referred to as hotspots in the past, we've reported on, police department, our department have been working together for some time and trying to identify resources and or ways for us to be able to manage patrolling and closing our parks. We've done safely and more securely. As such, we came across an opportunity for us to look at contracting security company to be able to do the patrolling. We did have Alpha Omega company on our PO through a purchase order. They were managing events for the recreation operation. They also were doing security operation at the Adult Recreation Center. Police and our department recommended to City Council that we hire the company for the remainder of this fiscal year, March 1st through the end of June 30th, to conduct patrols in our park facilities. We have about 26 facilities that we typically lock up at night. They either have a restroom facility or a tennis facility or our gated parking lots or chains that we lock up. As you know, most of our facilities do not have the ability to lock. They're just open to the general public. So of those 26 facilities, the company we put on board would just do their normal patrols and lock up facilities. Some facilities, as listed in the attachment, they lock up just after sunset. We refer to them as dusk or an hour after sunset. Those will be the Casa Adobe, the Riverwalk facility, the Lower Shoal facility, and a couple of additional ones in the mix, Duke-Majan inclusive. Unless they're permitted for an event, those facilities are locked just after sunset, an hour after sunset. And the rest of the facilities are locked right about 10 o'clock as part of the patrol. Council allocated $40,000 during the mid-year fiscal budget adjustments for this purpose. And that should see us through the end of the year. We're estimating $35,000 to $40,000 expenditure. And looking at it annually, it would be approximately an $80,000 operation going the whole year. So the company would give us 2 patrolmen, split the city geographically in half, just like we do our normal operation, north of the city and south of the city, and they'll do their duties in locking facilities. And they report to us if they see any activity, such as graffiti and or vehicles remaining inside overnight. They report to us, we report back to PD, and or take appropriate action as necessary. And going forward, this will give us the opportunity to study the program, and we're working with the city manager's office and putting together a request for proposal for more permanent security services. And within that, we're also going to include the other departments that may need similar services. Water and Power is interested, library definitely, recreation programs, special events, as well as the park facilities they would patrol. We're going to put them all together under one RFP, and within the next couple of months, we'll probably go out to request for proposals. Thus far, things seem to be doing well. We don't have to worry about retraining, recruiting, and or retaining staff to lock facilities. And this has taken a burden off of our operation and put it into trained, secured personnel that will do this task for us. That is all at this point. We'll definitely come back to you later on to report on the outcome of the RFP and seek guidance from you.
Thank you. Any comments?
If I may ask you, have you had any complaints from neighbors where the parks are closed and the people hanging around there and making noise and maybe drinking or using? Had any complaints like that?
Yes, President Fuad, Commissioner Kalfai, and members of the Commission, we typically do get complaints from the neighbors for activities after hours. The security company has done their best in patrolling areas within the hours allotted They average about 5 to 6 hours a night in patrolling. Now, lately, with the security company being more present in these facilities, we have seen a decline. The one thing that we've seen more consistency in being able to lock all the facilities at a specific time. So if one of our guys calls in sick last minute, rather than me being unable to replace that person, security company will be responsible for supplementing that, putting somebody else on the staff for that evening and locking facilities. Noise complaints and general use activity in certain parks is still going on, unfortunately, but with the presence of patrol and the more consistent security presence at these facilities, we're hoping to see a reduction in the spring and summer months when the activities tend to be really high.
So in addition to just locking up, they actually do some patrolling throughout the night, all through the night?
President Fuad, they do the patrolling within the allotted hours, about 5 to 6 hours. So as they're patrolling the facilities, imagine at times they get to a facility where there's still an event going on or pickup tennis game. They will have to come back to that facility, so they will use that opportunity to do the patrol, drive around, and then have to come back and return to lock the facilities. And going from one facility to the other that must be locked, if there is a park in existence, they patrol through the park area and see if there is any activity that needs to be reported to the police. So to some degree, yes, they do patrol other areas outside of the 26 parks that must be closed.
But I mean, like, would they come through at 1 a.m. to a given park?
No, at this point, President Fuad, it is correct. It is between the 5 to 6 hours we've allotted, anywhere from sunset to about 11 or so at night, 11:30 to conduct the closing. We do not have after hours at this point. We will evaluate the success of the program and the need, and working with the police department and with the city manager's office, see if that is a need for additional security patrolling. But at this time, the goal is to secure the parks and lock them up just as we would normally do during the regular business hours.
And what happens if they're ready to close the lot at 10 and there's some cars in the parking lot? What do they do?
That is an exceptional question, President Fuad. We have run into that problem in some of our facilities. Palmer Park tends to be one that we continually have parks. The neighbors park their vehicles in there. We have posted signs that their vehicle will get locked inside after 10 p.m. If there's no one within the park, as the security officer will kind of do the roundabout and can't find anyone, we know that a resident has parked their car in. We're, as a matter of fact, working on a flyer to post on those vehicles to let them know that parking overnight on city properties is against the GMC, the code, and to inform them that penalties may follow. So within the next couple of weeks, the security company will have that flyer, and anytime they see the same vehicle being parked in a location, they will put a flyer to inform the resident that we need to move the car out of the parking lot for after hours. But at this time, we would rather secure the park than just keep it open because there's a vehicle inside. So our direction to the company is to go ahead and lock the vehicles in the park.
I mean, in a way, it's free, secured parking for tenants. So
yes, yeah, it absolutely is, Mr. Fuad. Unfortunately, if they do need to use their vehicle after hours and their vehicle is locked inside, they will not have the luxury to do so. So in case of emergencies, they will not have access to their vehicles, hence one of the reasons why we will inform them, please do not lock your vehicles in the park overnight, because we won't be able to give them access.
I mean, you sound like you're doing absolutely the right approach.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do they report us every day, the security company, what they did, where they went, and what hour, and so on? Do we have a...
Commissioner Kalfai, on a monthly basis, they will provide the hours allotted per day, because we've allotted them up to 6 hours. Sometimes if they go 6.5, we're okay. So they provide a monthly chart as to how many hours each staff person worked. As far as activity, they do report. First thing in the morning, I get emails from their headquarters as to the activity. If it's vehicles that are locked, they get the license plate picture of the vehicle. If there's any graffiti, we get a picture of the graffiti in the facility. So what it does, it helps us, gear staff towards that facility first thing, especially when it comes to graffiti. And most of the time, by the time we forward the email to our staff in the field, our staff is already informed and have addressed the situation. But it's good to know that the company continually reports to us and we take action accordingly.
Anything else?
One quick question. So you're telling us that in order for them to continue patrolling the park until the rest of the fiscal year, it's going to be $40,000, which is going to be 4 months. You said from March 1st to end of June. But then the coming year, it's going to be $80,000 for full 12 months. So just trying to figure out how the numbers are adding up, because $40,000 for 4 months, and then you got 12 months for $80,000. So is that the correct calculation?
Yes. The way we had it figured out, Commissioner Wu, is approximately $35,000 would probably be allocated for this fiscal year. We are allowed at $40,000 because there may be some activity and or the need for additional areas to be patrolled, such as we have activity in some of the open space trail access on roads that are not within parks. We, in working with Mr. Mark Sturdivant, based on his request, will be allocating some of those resources in those areas as well for this fiscal year. Now, we're estimating $80,000 for next fiscal year. However, we're not quite certain what the RFP bids would come in. That is an estimate based on our initial review of some companies we've looked at, and that we'll likely get some company that would give us $75,000 to $80,000 a year service for the same number of hours that we have allotted at this point.
So is this our first year having security company patrol and lock up the parks? And also, we don't have any past data to compare to. Basically, we're just going to go with what.
Yes,
best of our calculation.
Commissioner, this would be our first experience effective. March 1st was the first when we started using the company. So March 1st on is our only experience hiring a professional security company to conduct the patrols and locking up parks.
Mr. President, Fowd, members of the Commission, if I can expand a little bit. Our plan is to develop and to issue a request for proposal, which means that there will be a number of security companies that are interested in that will compete for the contract with the city. So we believe by virtue of that we will get some potentially more cost-effective prices. So with $80,000, we might be able to get the same level of service as we're getting for $40,000 for 4 months. And based on what we're learning from our experience with the company that we're currently using, we will incorporate that into the request for proposal to get a better program, such as what types of daily reports or login sheets that we want from the company on a regular basis, which will report to us the number of incidences and the type of incidences. My understanding is that this is the first time in a long time that we've used a private security patrol company, but I was told that it's not the first time that our department has used private security patrol. But it's just that our department and the police department in recent years has experienced a spike in what Mr. Panosian referred to as hotspots. And with our limited resources and police department's limited resources, there's not a lot that we can do except try to prioritize and respond when we get calls. We're hoping that a security patrol, which is a marked car that makes sweeps and is driving in and out of the park, and they're uniformed and they have the floodlights, that will be a deterrent and it'll be noticeable. And they will be driving in and out and getting off at different times throughout the evening, so there's no set pattern, so that people can predict, when they might get caught and when they may not. So that's the general idea. It's a supplement to our police department and to our ability to police and monitor the parks. And so hopefully it will work and it will be effective, and we can just get better and better at it. So that's the goal.
Sure. Just point of clarification, in the report says two separate unmarked cars. Is it marked or is it unmarked?
Currently, Commissioner Wu, the vehicles provided by this company that we have on contract, they're unmarked vehicles. Unmarked in the sense that you could imagine like your police Crown Victorias with lights and markings. That would be in our version of the marked vehicles. Going forward in the RFP, that is what we are requesting. Currently, based on the pricing and the cost we have associated, this company would only provide the unmarked vehicles for the reason that the marked vehicles come in with officers that are armed, and our goal is not to have armed officers in the field, henceforth the unmarked vehicles at this point. Next proposal we'll be looking for would be marked vehicles, still unarmed. We do not want, police does not feel comfortable having armed security personnel in the facility. That is the police's job. If they do run into activity that requires that level of service, they will contact police department.
Okay, thank you.
Seems like an extraordinarily good deal. I mean, 5 or 6 hours a day, 7 days a week for $80,000 a year, and 2 cars to boot. I mean, that's extraordinary.
Yes. We're hoping that it will become more permanent and a program that will be successful and deter the unwanted activity from the parks.
Thank you. Next item, please.
President
Oh,
Fuad,
I'm
this
sorry.
is
Did you say?
actually-
Did you have something to say?
Need approval.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry. Okay.
you. We need a motion.
Do I hear a
to not-
motion?
I move the motion of hiring security for the parks.
I'll gladly second it.
Commissioners Kalfayan?
Yes.
Khan is absent. Sharkey?
Yes.
Wu?
Yes.
President Fuad.
Yes. Next item.
7B is park and open space hours. At 1, motion changing the hours of access for parks and open space and recommending approval to City Council to amend the GMC relating to park and open space hours as appropriate.
President Fuad, members of the Commission, before you is a report asking for your consideration and approval of a motion to change the hours of access for our parks and open space. And as a result, recommending to City Council to amend the GMC as appropriate. Currently, the Glendale Municipal Code 9.20.165 states that no person shall be or remain in the parks between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., with the exception of city personnel. And it also states that open space hours are between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. The GMC allows the police department to cite individuals who are in the parks and the open spaces during the non-accessible hours, as stated. Although the hours of access in the municipal code allow for longer access, the Community Services and Parks Department has exercised its ability to specify stricter hours of access in our policies for the safety and security of our patrons and the community. Currently, the department's policy for park hours have been or are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. for parks unless otherwise posted. And the otherwise posted parks, which would be the exceptions, and there's a breakdown in Exhibit 1, are some parks are 7 a.m. to an hour after sunset, 6 a.m. to an hour after sunset, or 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And these exceptions are due to safety concerns and or the historic value of the facility. Like, for example, the Tea House or the Casa Adobe, which are historic facilities, have earlier closing hours compared to the rest of the parks. Our trail hours currently are the same as the park hours, depending on which park the trail is accessible from. So, for example, the trails at Brand Park are accessible 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., which is when the park is open. But the trails at Duke Magian are accessible 6 a.m. to an hour after sunset, because those are the hours of operation for that specific park. And all the fire roads, which currently are accessible as trails, are following the municipal code, which is 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. Our parks, some of our parks are gated, and so they're physically locked. And the parks that close earlier than 10 p.m., which are part of the exceptions, are all gated parks. But that does not mean that all gated parks close before 10 p.m. It just happens that all of the exceptions have a gate where we're able to lock it so that people cannot access it. Whereas, something like the Central Park, even if we wanted to close it earlier, we wouldn't necessarily keep people out because there's no gate to keep them out. The fire roads are also gated to prohibit vehicular access, with the exception of authorized personnel, so people can either walk around the gate or climb over it or under it, but the vehicles can't access it, but pedestrians can hike up those trails, and the hours of access for those have been 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. The reason we're proposing to change the hours in order to be consistent and allow for better enforcement, we're proposing to streamline the hours of access for all parks and trails and amend the GMC as necessary to be in sync with the policies. And so what staff is proposing for the hours of access for majority of the parks will be the same, which is 7 a.m. So all parks will be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. unless otherwise posted. And again, the historic facilities or we'll still have the 1 hour after sunset. So, for example, Casa Adobe, the San Rafael, Lower Shoal, Mayor's Bicentennial, Riverwalk, Verdugo Adobe will all be 7 a.m. to an hour after sunset. The Tea House at Brand Park and the Doctor's House currently are and will remain 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Parks with The trails will all be 6 a.m. to an hour after sunset. The department did meet with police and fire to discuss the proposed changes in the hours of access, and both departments are supportive of the earlier closing hours for safety reasons, whether it's for the pedestrians or our own officers and firefighters, because we put them at risk as well if someone is out on the trails after sunset when they probably shouldn't be for their own safety. So it's just too dangerous for individuals to be out on the trails, and they also don't want to put their staff at risk. By not specifying an exact time and saying an hour after sunset, that does allow us to allow for hiking longer in the summer when the sun does set later. And so by not specifying 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., we do allow for that adjustment in the summer hours. So at this point, staff is requesting that Commission approve the proposed changes in the hours and recommend to City Council to amend the GMC as appropriate. The fiscal impact, there's going to be relatively modest fiscal impact overall as we go through and change the signage, because currently the parks have signs that read, if the parks have signs that read different from what we're proposing, we will need to print new signs and put it up. But again, it probably it'll be a modest cost, and we don't have an exact figure at this time. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, I think that's great, especially during fire season.
Well, I have a question. Why did you make it from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m.? The opening times. They were 6 to 10. Now it's 7 a.m. to 10. Why did you?
The park hours?
Yes.
They've always been 7. The GMC states 6, and like I said earlier, the department has used our department policies to specify stricter hours of access. So the GMC does say 6 a.m., but for those parks where, for example, the Central Park or the mini parks, 6 a.m. will allow people to be within the parks, but PD will not be able to cite them. So that will be the only difference. The municipal code really allows the police department to be able to enforce those hours, but the parks themselves will open at 7 a.m. And the gated parks are the parks that we would not be able to open before 7.
I'm sure. I mean, aren't there people who like to stroll and hike and just be before 7 a.m.? I would think there's a number of people like that.
The parks that do have trails will open at 6 a.m.
Well, like Brand, for instance. Is Brand going to be
Yes.
Will trails be open before 7?
Yes.
We're changing Brand, and we're changing
Sports
complex to open at 6 a.m.
Because it doesn't quite say that here.
Yeah, there's a column on your exhibit that says proposed. Those are the new hours that we're proposing as part of this action.
Got it. I was looking at the existing.
Yeah, because we agree with you. If the trails, if it makes sense for people to be able to hike the trails at 6, then the park from which you get access trails should open at the same time. And right now there's an inconsistency. And the reason that all the other parks are open at 7, because from a staff resource perspective, it wouldn't be practical for us to think that we can have all the parks opened at 6 a.m. So the only exceptions we're making to continue open at 6 a.m. are the parks that have trails in them.
Okay.
All other parks will open at 7, and then we will be consistent with the GMC code after we change the GMC code as well. Because right now we've got different park hours posted at different places. So,
do people use some of the non-trail parks before 7 today?
Yes, President Fuad, yes, they do. The parks that are not gated and are generally open to the public, we do see some activity before 7 a.m. And according to the current GMC, and with the change in what we're proposing, they're still able to do so. The only restriction we have, or the inability of the staff resources to make sure every park facility is open at 6 a.m., some parks will still have the 7 a.m. opening to allow for our staff to check in, see identifiable available resources, and disperse and get everything open by 7 a.m. So yes, if it's a park such as ARC or any park, Elk Mini, the ones that are not gated, people are able to be in the park at 6 a.m.
And you're not going to be citing them?
And there will not be cited, no, absolutely not.
Okay.
I have a quick question and a comment. My question being, what brought on the change? Was it initiated by the general public, residents, or was it a city agency that requested to have the hours revisited and amended as accordingly, or?
The change, I think, came about as we were looking at signage for Brand Park, and we realized and that was a park that has trails, and so we realized that the hours of access for certain trails are different, and so we started looking at all the park access hours and comparing that to the municipal code, and I think also from an enforcement perspective, we had been hearing from the police department that sometimes it is difficult to be at, if they do receive a call and the individuals are on the trails after sunset, well, according to the municipal code, it's until 10 p.m., and so it's really hard to cite them. So enforcement was difficult. So it was a combination of, PD asking for a specific policy, and then us looking at the policy as far as signage for Brand Park.
And my comment is, I see the reason why we have the 1 hour after sunset, and you had specified as to the reasoning behind that, but won't that allow people to be using their subjective mind as to, they could say, well, that hour, when does that hour technically kick in, and when does that actually, when is that, the 1 hour after sunset? So I just think that it would be very subjective, and it would just allow for people to say one thing or the other, and we still might have some enforcement issues, won't that?
Yeah, President Wood, that's a very good observation. As a matter of fact, what we used to refer to it as dusk, and there are a number of different translations of dusk. So Mark Sturtevant's recommendation was to look at sunset and call it 1 hour after sunset, because everybody's got a smartphone now, and as a matter of fact, the smartphone identifies specifically when sunset should occur daily. So although there may still be some enforcement issues, and our goal isn't to really find people and cite them, it's more of a rule that police can hold as, a guideline for them to be able to. If somebody's there at 8 o'clock and sunset was at 5 in the winter time, it's hard to justify. You're absolutely right. The police will use their good judgment in citing people for being in the park. For us, it's more of making sure the park is cleared and the trails are safe at a certain point. So sunset, given the fact that our smartphones specifically identify when sunset is, 1 hour after that would be what we expect people to leave. Now, it could be an hour or 10, but it's morally just a common, solid rule that we can enforce to a certain degree.
All righty.
That's why people have lawyers.
Indeed.
President Fowd, if Commissioner Wu, if I could add to that, as you can see on the chart, the hours posted at Dugmajan are currently 6 a.m. to 1 hour after sunset. And based on our experience with the hikers at Dugmajan, they're able to abide by that. They've adjusted to it, and they're conditioned to know approximately when 1 hour after sunset is, and we will err on the side of closing a little bit past that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve the new charges?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Skalfayan?
Yes.
On his absent, Sharkey?
Yes.
Wu?
Yes.
President Fuad.
Yes. Next item, please.
7C, new wireless telecommunications agreement with Verizon Wireless at Shoal Canyon Ball Fields. At 1 is a motion recommending that the City Council approve an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute a new ground lease agreement with Los Angeles SMSA Limited Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, Verizon, to install a new wireless telecommunications facility at Shoal Canyon Ball Fields.
Yes, President Fuad, members of the Commission, we have come to you in the past with new telecommunication agreements that we have installed in certain facilities. As you may know, currently we have about 8 cell towers within park and open space facilities. They are all in ordinance, which, because of the 5 years plus lease requirement that each company has in place. And anytime you lease city property out more than 5 years, it tends to become an ordinance with city council approval. So we are here before you today. You'll have two items, this one and following it at another site. Recommendations we're asking of you to approve, to take to council, and ask them to introduce an ordinance to get into agreement with Verizon Wireless. This particular item in front of you at this point is going to be located at the Shoal Canyon Ball Fields. The southwest portion of the ball fields near the parking lot, there's some space, very small area that they would require to install their equipment. And outside of the ball field fencing, where the open space is, they're looking at installing what they call popsicle style, kind of like a little post next to each other. That would be the antennas themselves. We have agreed with Verizon to fall in line with all the other agreements, a 10-year plus additional 5-year options, 3 5-year options to extend up to 25 years their agreement at a monthly rate of $3,000 and 4% annual increase for just cost of living adjustment. We have insurance guidelines set in play. And just like any other agreement, there's termination clauses in place, relocation clauses in place. We work closely with our city attorney's office, so the language in the agreement will fall in line with the current ordinance that we have for telecommunication facilities, and also working with the planning folks, because they have to go through the planning process, get the approval of the planning commission, hold the community meetings in the neighborhoods that these towers will go in, and get approvals that way. So before we proceed to council, we're here to ask for your blessing to recommend this, as well as we'll wait till the Planning Commission gives their approvals on the designs and the construction drawings, and then we'll take it to council to recommend to council to approve this agreement. Now, we do generate over $325,000 in the different agreements that we have currently in place. Now, the past 10 to 15 years, I should say, these have been very popular with agencies as a revenue source. At the same time, we've had one that's been in place for about 20 years this year. This year, the one at Verizon Tower at Babe Herman is going to terminate this year. So we're looking at renegotiating that for an additional term, be a new agreement with them at the current market rate. So, and we use the revenue from this to offset our maintenance costs at, ball fields when we do ball field renovations. We use this for that. We do pay for weekend staff to cover the weekends. We use funding from this resource to conduct tree trimming as necessary, contracted tree trimming, and a lot of other areas for staff resources that we utilize. We do use this funding to be able to offset those costs in our parks.
Any questions or comments?
Well, quick question.
Yes, sir.
I know this is limited just to Verizon, but do we have any other carriers that are currently looking at cell sites at our city-owned properties? Or do we currently have anyone like, for instance, AT&T or T-Mobile or Sprint?
Yes.
Carriers?
President Wu, you may recall...
President Fuad.
I'm sorry, President Fuad. Commissioner Wu.
I am the president.
I'm promoting you for next season, my friend. Commissioner Wu, as a matter of fact, several months back, the city got into an agreement with Crown Castle. So any new site outside of the ones that we'll be presenting here, if a communication company comes to us with a recommendation on city property, they will go under that agreement with Crown Castle, where Crown Castle will take a look at the location and in working with our department and the other departments, identify the need for that area to have coverage, construct the telecommunications facility themselves, and invite the carriers to come on board at those sites. There were 5 locations we had been working on right before the Crown Castle agreement went into place, and those, including these 2 at hand right here, those will be, we're going to continue negotiating from our department's perspective. They will not be part of the Crown Castle agreement. Henceforth, this one, the one following it over at Fremont Park, there is an AT&T proposal I had been working on for also Shoal Ball Fields, and Verizon had one additional site. AT&T had a request at Dunsmore that didn't really materialize, and one over Riverwalk. So there's a few that we may still bring to you if they do finalize and materialize. But at this point, any new telecommunication companies that request our facilities for this purpose would have to go through the our Economic Development Department and be under the Crown Castle agreement.
Is Crown Castle a third-party entity that kind of acts as our liaison between the city and the telecommunication companies?
Yes, Commissioner Wu. Crown Castle, as a matter of fact, we have a couple of agreements with Crown Castle. They're more of a real estate, they're a company that manages telecommunication facilities. They are one of the leading companies. So a lot of companies, telecommunication folks like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, rather than expanding their own resources and building and maintaining these structures, they get into an agreement with the third power companies, such as Crown Castle, to be able to use their constructed existing facilities to be able to put their towers on, and there's mutual benefit for both parties with that approach. They specialize in construction and maintenance of the facilities, whereas Verizon or T-Mobile would pay a fee for being on their tower, just like a lease. So that is kind of the trend going forth.
So we pay Crown Castle to manage and...
No, we will not be paying Crown Castle. The agreement with the city and Crown Castle is if Crown Castle identifies a facility or an area that they like to construct a telecommunications facility at, they will have an agreement with the city, whereas a portion of the revenue that they generate from those facilities, they will pay to the city. So the city will not be out of pocket anything at all for any of the construction at all. As a matter of fact, it will generate revenue for the city for every new site that they construct.
So, for instance, this deal with Verizon, you said it was $3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a 4% increase over year to year.
Correct.
So, is that $3,000 full amount going to be paid to the city?
Correct. This agreement here in front of you and the following agreement will be directly paid to the city, and it will be to the Parks Department's revenue account. These two are outside of the Crown Castle agreement. Henceforth, we will be managing these towers directly with the Verizon company.
And is this the current market rate?
This is the current market rate for the sites that we have in the city of Glendale, correct. So a lot of the other agreements that we either renegotiated and or were new, such as the Verizon Tower at Fern Lane, the one by the sports complex, it's been in place for the last, I think, 3-4 years. Though this was the market rate that we used, $3,000 for the base monthly rate.
Thank you.
How did we reach to $3,000? On what basis? And then do we have any complaints from the neighborhood when we post those antennas?
Commissioner Kalfayan, in the neighborhoods, we are not involved because that would be more of a right-of-way, and I believe a different department will handle those requests if they come in. As far as reaching the $3,000, at the time we were looking at renegotiating after a first 10-year initial plan of 3 or 4 of our cell towers. We did a market research. We kind of looked out to the other agencies around us, comparable agencies, and wanted to look at what is a standard good market rate for a quality location, and we found that $3,000 would be an ideal one. We would not be the highest, nor we would be the lowest. So we're more or less kind of a standardized rate, $3,000. It was based on looking at agencies around us, Santa Monica, the Burbanks, anybody else that might have agreements in place.
Why aren't we the highest?
President Flood, we want to be marketable, and we want to be able to attract telecommunication companies. And it's based on need. Their radio frequency engineers will look at an area where what they call is dark, and that there would be a need for service. And based on that is when they'll approach us, identify a location. It is all based on need. And if the need is higher, then the rates that we have would actually fall in place.
Now, under the current, and these two agreements, all the funds go to the Parks Department. Under Cox and Castle will be divvied up among the city?
Yes, under the current two agreements, you will be providing us your direction. The full amount of the revenue per year will go to the Parks Department, correct.
And as I say, going forward, under the Cox and Crown Castle, it won't be?
Yeah, any future requests that come through will go through the Crown Castle agreement, correct, and they will give the revenues, it'll go to the city directly.
And I've been involved in in my area, Northwest Glendale, there's been a huge controversy about a Verizon tower, first at Kenneth Village, now in the nearby cemetery. Not a park, it's a final park. A lot of neighborhood complaints. And just to emphasize what Mr. Kalfayan said, has there been any public notice of this?
President Watt, the public notice, I'll get it right. The public notice aspect of the approach will be through the planning department. So before planning department reviews and approves the plans, I do believe they reach out to the community and inform them of their meeting to approve this document. So the public will be notified, and have their ability to comment at those proceedings with the Planning Commission.
And just finally, I noticed this is just a poll. You weren't interested in one of their tree formats?
For this particular site, President Fuad, the poles, or what they call is the sticks, were more favorable because of the location they're going to be planting in. If you look at one of the photos, it is more on the slope on the open space. The tree would require to be at 40 plus as far as its height, and it may not be structurally suitable for the location. And another reason why they went with this option at this location, we currently have T-Mobile at this site. And the T-Mobile's towers right now are kind of similar to kind of like a light post, look like candlesticks, within the park. So they wanted to mimic what we already had rather than construct a tree, for example, a monopine, which would be the following agreement we'll look at.
Okay, well, that's fine. Any more comments or questions?
I just wanted to just kind of, I know that Mr. Panosian had mentioned that, from what I know, this is going to need to go through an entitlement process. So it's going to go through a public hearing process, and that's when the residents, adjacent residents, will be notified, and they will have an opportunity to come and voice their concerns and issues, and also try to raise some mitigating factors. So I think the residents will be kept abreast of the development, so they will have at least a hands-on approach, so they will not be blindsided. So.
Well, and if there's a significant change, will it come back to this commission?
If there is, President Fuad, yes, if there is significant change in either the agreement or design or plans, we'll bring it back to the commission before we send it to council. What we want is an agreement that all departments have had an opportunity to review, all the appropriate commissions have had an opportunity to review and comment, and before it goes to council for an adoption of an ordinance. Now, it may change at the council meeting based on what council's recommendations may be, but at this time, we believe, as Commissioner Wu highlighted, that the public will have their ability to provide their input through the Planning Commission process, and once we have all agreements in place and an executed agreement from Verizon, at that time we'll schedule it for council for introduction.
I know in another project in my area there was some confusion of the relative overlap of commissions' jurisdiction, DRB versus Planning Commission versus some other things. So we're approving it sort of in a way a cart before the horse before the public hearing at the Planning Commission. So I think for my money, I'm going to vote yes on this, but I think we don't want to be seen as approving something that turns out to be the public hates. So I just want to sort of go on record as saying, based on this with no community opposition, it looks fine, but obviously there's a huge outcry, and who knows, I don't want to be seeing as we're just ignoring the public will because we haven't heard the public yet.
And President Fuad, once we hear back from our Planning Commission, we'll bring a report back to you if the public outcry and or the public's comments are against this tower. And depending on how the Planning Commission votes on it, we'll bring it back to you to give you the input whether or not we're going to proceed to council or not. And if there is strong opposition, we'll come back and let you know that we will not be proceeding based on the opposition from the public and the review from the Planning Commission.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead.
This calls for knowledge I really don't have, so I'm going to abstain. Just my vote.
Okay, well, do I hear a motion?
Can I make a motion for both of the telecommunications for the Fremont and Shoal together?
Well, you tell us. Is that something that we can combine, or maybe should we spend a few minutes on Fremont?
It's the same procedure, right?
Yes, the only difference at Fremont is that it is not the popsicle antennas, it is a monopine tree. And we can, once it's read into the record, I can speak on that if you like, and then you may be able to move both items.
Okay, well, why don't you do that then?
Okay. 7D is new wireless telecommunications agreement with Verizon Wireless at Fremont Park. At 1, motion recommending that the City Council approve an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute a new ground lease agreement with Los Angeles SMSA Limited Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, Verizon, to install a new wireless telecommunications facility at Fremont Park.
And Commissioner Fuad, I should say, two differences with this agreement. One is that it's not the popsicle style of the antennas, it is a monopine, because we actually do have an existing pine tree at that location. It would mimic it, be a little less in height. And second is, at this location is what we use as more of a storage facility for some of our, whether it be equipment and or supplies. We had a storage bin at this site. So as part of the agreement, we agreed to move the storage container to an alternate site and allow for them to construct in that specific area. And as such, Verizon Wireless has agreed to give us $5,000 in addition in the startup of the project for us to be able to buy a tough shed and have it installed so we can put our supplies in the tough shed. The storage bin will be moved to an alternate location for other purposes, and yet we'll still have our ability to store supplies at the site. All other portions of the agreement, the terms or whatnot, are all similar.
Any comments on this one? I will say in Fremont, because it's in a neighborhood, even though it's not, is it directly adjoining a property? Is it sort of shunted to the side?
No, this, at the Fremont site, President Fuad, it is, if you're familiar with where the maintenance yard is, next to the wash, there is a little triangular space that is not accessible and or used by the public. It is right next to the maintenance yard, the garage, adjacent to the wash, the Verdugo wash.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say my comments about public input are more so for this one because neighbors, rightly or wrongly, may object. Some people object to the radio waves, although that's not a valid concern theoretically. But so I just echo my earlier comments on it. So with that, do I hear a motion for both projects, Fremont and Shoal Canyon?
I move the motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Skalfayan?
Yes.
On his absent, Sharkey?
Abstain.
Wu?
Yes.
President Fuad?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 7E, modification of various summer aquatics program fees at 1, resolution eliminating existing fees and establishing new fees for the summer aquatics program.
Good afternoon, President Fuad and members of the Commission. I'm Gabrielle Golia, and I'm the Community Services Supervisor at the Sports Complex, which includes the operation of the Summer Aquatics Program at Pacific Pool. I'm here today to talk with you about modifying some of our entrance fees. In short, we are looking to simplify our entrance fees a little bit at the pool this summer. The Pacific Pool opened in 2011 and has operated annually with fantastic participation every year. People love the pool, and we have very low rates for swim lessons and for our entrance fees, and we are planning on keeping them nice and low. Last summer, almost 3,000 registrants participated in lessons, and we had over 16,000 entries in the recreation swim program. Our lap swim has approximately 200 entries every summer. It's not as popular a program. It's for our adults who are exercising, while the rest of the program really is aimed more at the children who are on summer break and want to come and cool off and swim for the summer. As a service to our participants, staff is recommending simplifying the entry fees this year by eliminating some of the designated program fees, such as a recreation swim only fee and a lap swim only fee, and creating an entrance fee that is good for both rec and lap swim times. The new entrance fees are the same cost as the existing rec swim fees, and they will produce a slight reduction for people in the 12 to 54 age range entering during lap swim times. As part of the modifications, we are recommending a 15 punch pass for entries, and this would be at a discount of 20% off the daily entry fee. So if a participant would like to purchase a 15 punch pass, they'll get a little discount. We are looking to eliminate the combination pass, which used to be a pass that was good for both rec swim and lap swim for the entire summer. We actually never sold one. We had very few participants who really wanted to do both. So with the reduced lap swim rates and creating a standard entry fee, we actually don't need that combination pass anymore. We anticipate that these new fees will result in approximately a $200 reduction in revenue, which is very minor in the overall program revenues. And that's really from the $1 reduction for our lap swimmers that are coming in, the adult lap swimmers, the approximately 200 people that come in will each see a $1 reduction. That is pretty much all of our fees right there that we're asking to modify. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, please.
This reduction will decrease our income
Yes, by approximately $200 a year.
the whole year.
Yeah.
What difference it would make?
It's really a simplification of the fees. This is a decision more for our participants and for the ease of allowing everybody to come in at the same rate. Our programs tend to run concurrently. Lap swim and rec swim are actually taking place at the same time. The first hour of our rec swim time, we have a couple of lanes designated for lap swim. And it doesn't seem, after analyzing after all these summers, why are lap swim participants paying more than a rec swim participant when they're coming in for the exact same time with the same staff? So this is a simplification of those fees and just charging an entry fee.
Thank you.
You still need a counsel to read to understand. Any questions or comments? I think we're being asked to approve the fees.
Yes, we are looking for a motion to approve the resolution eliminating the existing fees and establishing new fees, and recommending that the Glendale City Council incorporate into the comprehensive citywide fee schedule the changes.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioners.
Yes.
He wants to get in the pool.
Commissioners Kalfayan.
Yes.
Ron is absent. Sharkey.
Yes.
Wu.
Yes.
President Fuad.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next items.
Item 8, reports information only. At A, Therapeutic Recreation Annual Report.
Good afternoon, President Fuad and members of Commission. My name is Kenneth Kahn. I'm the Community Services Supervisor. I supervise Maple Park Community Center and Therapeutic Recreation Programs. I'm here to give you a brief introduction about the therapeutic recreation programs that our department provides. Therapeutic recreation is made up of the Club Maple program and the Get Fit program. Both programs provide service to adults with developmental disabilities. The programs are held at Maple Park Community Center and service the residents of Glendale and the surrounding areas. Club Maple has been around for over 26 years and has become a fixture at Maple Park. The Club Maple program is held on Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., and Get Fit is held on Mondays from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Club Maple provides social interaction activities such as a bingo night, movie night, karaoke night, and other special events such as a Halloween costume contest, Thanksgiving event, Christmas party, Valentine's Day dance, and many more. Get Fit is more of an exercise program, so that's basically every Monday night, 5 to 7 at Maple Park. We have a basketball night, dodgeball, a lot of fun activities to help get the participants into shape. With that said, we'll get into a slideshow. Actually, the slideshow is running here, as I see. There we go. Yeah, I was looking for that. So let's get into some of the pictures. That's our Halloween event. They have a lot of fun. We do a costume contest, and we select a winner. This is our Christmas party that we had this past December. Another fun, free event for the participants. One of the only programs that provides services to adults with developmental disabilities in Glendale and even in the surrounding cities. So we get residents from other cities, Eagle Rock, Atwater Village, that all come to the program. This is the Thanksgiving event. We've fed close to 90 people this Thanksgiving. Our Valentine's Day dance. We've had lots of marriages come out of these, so we're very proud of that. The attendance for Club Maple has gone up over the years. As we've added more events, we've seemed to have attracted more people that have participated within the programs. So that's what we pretty much allude that to, is towards adding more events. As well as the Get Fit program, the same thing has actually happened with that. The attendance has gone up from when it first started to where it is now. So we average at least 10 participants every single Monday. That's a basketball night for Get Fit. These are just some of the conditions that we service in terms of therapeutic recreation. Any questions?
how do you reach your clients?
Well, we do advertise the programs in a newsletter that we send out to the participants, and then we also send it out to a lot of the regional homes. There's a couple of the actual homes like Latterman Home that provide in-home care to a lot of the participants, so we send our newsletter to a lot of those homes. They end up posting it for us, as well as the flyers that we send out in the mail. So that helps get a lot of participants.
They have transportation? Or?
Yes, they have dial-a-ride, and a lot of the other participants end up having a caregiver that brings them. So it's something that they really look forward to, week in and week out.
How's it currently funded?
We're 101 general funded, so we are budgeted within the 101 general budget.
And what is our annual budget?
The annual budget is roughly around $12,000. That includes the hourly wages and the M&O.
And then the rest is, $12,000?
Well, basically, it's a part-time program. What I mean by that, it's 2 hours a week for Club Maple on Thursdays. Get Fit is also 2 hours a week, and we have hourly staff that run it, as well as myself being the full-time staff. So we make it work.
Excuse me, Commissioner Wu, the $12,000 will cover the hourly salaries, about 4 hours a week, plus the maintenance and operation, let it be arts and crafts, food, snacks, and so on. When we do these events, most of the entertainment, let it be DJ, radio, is sponsored, or we get the services donated. And we also get some food donated either from Honey Baked or Domino's, or we go out and go to Smart and Final and buy the supplies ourselves to keep the cost minimum.
Great. Yeah, we do have a lot of churches that donate towards the program. Right. So,
President Fowd, Commissioner Wu, if I may, what percentage of your time do you devote to this program?
I would say probably about a quarter of my time. I have a lot of other, besides therapeutic recreation, we have Club Maple and so forth. But I'd say about a quarter of my time is.
So in addition to $12,000, it would be 25% of Ken's time, so maybe another
somewhere around
$5,000 or so.
Yeah, because that $12,000 doesn't include anything of myself, being the full-time staff. So that's strictly for that program that's coming out.
And it's been in existence for 24 years, you said, right?
Yeah, 26 years.
26 years.
It's been a real staple in this community.
Yeah, they look forward to it.
It's a great program. I've been to the Valentine dance, and I don't sit out any dances.
I think you've been there a couple
times.
They're
so special. They're just so special.
Well, you see your picture.
I think there's one.
Well, you got a couple of proposals yourself.
Almost.
We also get a lot of support from the caregivers. Their caregivers actually show up to all of our events and the meetings, and they stay there and participate with the participant, with their client. So with that support, with the support of also the general fund, that's how we keep the program going.
Great. Thank you.
Do we have any volunteers? Do you use any volunteers?
We do use volunteers for that program as well. They weren't here for this particular recognition today, but we do use volunteers from time to time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next, we have item 8B, Spar Heights Community Center Annual Report.
President Fuad, Commissioners, staff, I'm Maggie Kavarian, Community Services Supervisor for the Spar Heights Community Center. I'll be presenting the annual report for Spar Heights fiscal year 2013-2014. We have drop-in programs such as Tai Chi and Senior Fitness on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We actually have a specialty fitness program for developmentally disabled adults on Fridays, and we introduced yoga in 2013, and it has been highly successful. We also have our senior nutrition program on Monday through Friday at Spar Heights, and here are some of the events that we've had: Thanksgiving, Chinese New Year, Christmas. Valentine's Day event, we collaborated with the library, and children who participated in library programs made Valentine's Day cards for our seniors. Mardi Gras is a very big event at Spar Heights, as is Easter and St. Patrick's Day. We also have other drop-in activities such as our senior chat group. It meets on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock. We have our knitting group and our wood carving group. Bingo is highly popular on Wednesdays. We get over 50 people coming in for bingo. We have 2 bridge groups. We have one on Tuesdays and one on Wednesdays. Backgammon, and we have about 8 to 10 billiards players every day dropping in. We introduced the after-school club in fiscal year 2013, and we have about 20 children walking over from Fremont Elementary School Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Highly successful. Parents love this program. It's from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and children come in, do homework, finish up their assignments, hang out with other kids until mom and dad come. Our day camps are just a phenomenal success at SPAR. They've just grown so much. And we have summer, winter, and spring. This is our summer camp, obviously the water play. Spring and winter camp, we have our indoor hockey during winter. We do a lot of presentations at SPAR. Recent events we've had, City Council in your neighborhood. We've had our council forum, City Council forum, and most recently our election. We were a polling place. We also are very involved in the community. All our seniors volunteer. Glendale Cruise Night 2013, these are our seniors doing the goodie bags for the cruise night entrance. We were part of the tree lighting ceremony. We helped wrap all the gifts, our seniors did, so we can put them around our Christmas tree over at City Hall. We have rentals. We're very busy on Saturdays and Sundays with rentals such as baby showers, bridal showers, meetings, dances. And that is our annual report for SPAR. Any questions?
You serve lunch daily to seniors, do you? Or
We do, Monday through Friday at
Monday
SPAR
through
Heights.
Friday?
It's delicious.
I wouldn't know. And then that's their charge. Seniors are charged for that, or how does that work?
It is not a charge. It is a $2.50 suggested donation.
The same company that we do here at the...
At the adult rest. The ARC is really where our central kitchen is. And what we do is we have a meal driver, who delivers the meals to SPAR Heights and to Pacific Park Community Center.
That's a city-owned kitchen, or is
City.
it a contract?
It is not. We contract with Morrison Management Specialists. They are subcontractor, but city employees deliver the meals and serve the meals.
What are the operation hours? When you're renting those halls and so on, what hours do we?
Rentals, it runs the gamut because we are open for business, regular business, or I should say the community center is open 8 to 5 on Mondays and Tuesdays, 8 to 6 on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and 8 to 3 on Fridays. So we could have possibly a rental concurrently with what activities we have going on. It is a smaller center, but usually we rent out Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays. And that's most popular for rentals.
Till what time?
6 p.m. and till midnight sometimes. It just depends on the event.
You don't have neighborhoods complain?
We actually have really great neighbors now.
And we allow alcoholic beverages in there?
We do actually. We just approved our alcohol policy, so we do allow for alcohol with a permit, security, and insurance.
So that has increased our budget income?
It has, and it hasn't, because the site is very popular for baby showers, bridal showers, and birthdays, which usually have a lot of children, and we don't necessarily have that many alcohol requests, but we do. We have our fair share.
Is the capacity?
The Verdugo room, if I go back, the Verdugo room with the tablecloths can hold up to from 80 to 100. The south patio, which is that outdoor upper right-hand side, can hold up to 50, and the garden room below can hold up to 50.
Assuming no smoke.
No smoking.
What's like the daily average participant
Well, for seniors, we have about 50 to 60 seniors a day in different rooms. And then we have our after-school kids come in, so about 20 to 25 after-school kids and seniors concurrently in the after hours.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much. Next, please.
Next, we have 8C Fremont Park Master Plan. Oral report.
President Fogg, Commissioners, the city, one of the priorities for the city in this fiscal year, and of course once we have a master plan and the future fiscal years, will be the renovation of Fremont Park. Fremont Park is located at 600 West Hahn, and it's a 7.9 acre park which falls within a neighborhood park, but it's like a borderline community park because it's large enough where we do attract people from outside of the immediate area. It is the oldest park in Glendale, and it was acquired in 1922. The park was last updated in 1988-89. The City Council appropriated funds to master plan Fremont Park for a major renovation. We issued an RFP and received 4 responses and interviewed the 4 consultants and hired David Volt's Design, who is helping us master plan the park. We held our first community meeting on Saturday, April 11th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the park. And we noticed the community, the quarter mile around the park. We also sent flyers out to the schools, the elementary schools nearest the park, which were Keppel and Columbus. We emailed interest groups, posted signs at the park, and announced at the city council meeting, and I believe it was also included in our newsletter. We had a great turnout for the first community meeting. We had about 50 people in attendance, and mainly comprised of people living near the area around the park, the neighbors around the park. We also had some individuals from the pickleball community, seniors and young adults using the park, and soccer, tennis, and volleyball players who are regulars at the park. The agenda for the meeting was basically we did an introduction, welcome, and we provided background on the park and explained to the community the purpose of the meeting. And David Volt's Design did a walkthrough of the park where we walked the individuals in attendance throughout the park and had them look at the amenities and different angles of the park to give them an idea, and the slideshow does show some pictures from that walkthrough and gave people the perspective of, and as we stopped at each corner, we talked about what they saw in that area that's currently there, talked about what they would like to see remaining in the park, what they'd like to see different at the park, and gave the individuals the ability to picture the park so that when they got back to the tables that were set up, they would be able to get back into groups and help us master plan the park, what they would like to see, so kind of act like landscape architects for a day. We shared our vision for the park and what the city's goals would be, and of course, it was just to give them ideas of what we as staff and the city would want to see possibly at the park, but also to give them the ability to think through if some of these things are things that they would like to see and get them thinking. And so some of the goals that we as staff have identified for this park are safety and security. So, a drive path for PD, better lighting for security purposes, strategic fencing in certain areas like maybe around the playground, increased parking, adding new features like a potential soccer field or exercise equipment or a bigger wading pool or some water features. Grouping buildings in one area to be able to maximize the green space. Maintenance efficiency, so things that we could do for maintenance efficiency and drought-tolerant landscaping. And we kind of talked through this as we walked through the park. And when the community got back to the tables, they all grouped into 5 different groups and did an exercise. Each group had a site map, and they were able to write out or draw out what they would envision for the park. And at the end of this exercise, they were able to present what their group would like to see within the park. And this is a couple pictures from the presentation. So as you could see, each group, there were 5 groups, and each group had the opportunity to present their thoughts. The feedback that we received or we heard from the community that day was almost all the groups and everybody said that they would love to see a walking path around the park. They would like to see more picnic tables or shelters. They'd like to see the restrooms renovated or more restrooms or better, newer restrooms. They all wanted to keep the tennis courts as is. It's heavily used and it's very popular at that park, and they want to make sure that the tennis courts are there, even if they are moved to a different area to create more parking spaces or anything. They want to make sure the courts stay, and the basketball court, which is heavily used. Like I mentioned, the pickleball community was there, and so there was some of the groups did want to see additional pickleball courts, if we can, at this park. The open turf, which is currently being used for soccer, the residents were pretty open to having it artificial turfed and fenced to be able to program it, and maybe that would help limit the parking situation as well. So they were open to actually having a soccer field at this park. They wanted to see some exercise equipment. They see their neighbors exercising in the mornings and walking throughout the park, so they would like to see some exercise equipment. Tree trimming, removal of certain palm trees, which create a mess at the park, so they were open to seeing that moved. Keeping the wading pool or adding or exchanging it for a water feature. So we heard some of that from the community. More parking, maybe possibly moving the children's play area. Right now it's closest to the street, so maybe moving it to where the Rose Garden is, which would be towards the middle of the park, and that way it would be a safety barrier for the kids and not being able to run out to the street. Shade canopies for the children's play area, and maybe a dog park if there's that opportunity. And here's an example of one of the groups. Once they were done with doing their planning, they were able to get up and present what their ideas were, and this is where we heard the feedback. DVD is currently pulling together all the feedback that we received, and there was also a survey that was made available to the community who was in attendance, and they were able to write out their thoughts. And there were questions like, what do you like about the park? What do you want to see different about the park? And so they were able to fill out those surveys and submit them. So DVD's compiling those surveys. And next steps will be, once the feedback is compiled, DVD will work on conceptual plans. So they'll do 3 different conceptual plans, and we'll go ahead and schedule a second community meeting. And the second community meeting will be where we will be able to present the 3 conceptual plans and have hopefully the same community or more people attend and tell us what they like or don't like based on what we heard from them and the potential designs. We're looking at an evening meeting. This one was a morning meeting, so the next one will be an evening meeting and probably more indoors, classroom style, where they'll be able to look at the potential designs. And that will probably be, we don't have a date identified yet, but it will probably be towards the end of May. Will be a mid or end of May. So we'll identify a community meeting just to be able to notice the community at least 2 weeks notice. And we'll again go ahead and mail out flyers and emails to the sign-up sheet that we were able to compile from this meeting. And once we have a potential plan, we will bring that plan to commission for your feedback, which will then go to City Council for final approval of the master plan. That concludes my report. If you have any questions.
Questions, comments? It is my area. I just, a general question, I'm sure you've told us, does Glendale use gray water to irrigate parks?
President Fuad, there are a number of parks that gray water, recycled water is readily available. The infrastructure is there, and yes, if there is infrastructure at a specific facility, we do use it. Brand Park is one where a good portion of the facility is watered with recycled. Sports Complex, a couple of others. Same with the medians. We have a number of them that are recycled water available, and we use it for that.
Is there any move to increase that, or you just dependent on what Water and Power does, I suppose?
As a matter of fact, based on the new governor's executive order that has come into play, I believe GWP will be taking a report to council with some recommendations. Now, we've worked with GWP in identifying what are some of the restrictions that we'll be faced with. We've had a number of meetings, identified areas for improvement, such as the medians that are turf currently being watered by potable. Part of the order is for us, we won't be able to do that any longer. So we're looking at options of what to do in those medians, as well as one of the long-term
I'm sorry,
goals.
you won't be able to do what again? I'm sorry?
Some of the medians we have that are watered with potable water, if it is turf, if it is ornamental turf, grass, the order precludes us from being able to water, excludes us from being able to water. So we have to look at alternative options. We'll be removing the grass in some of those medians and either doing drought-tolerant landscaping or a combination of that with mulch. We have a plan currently being finalized to go forth. But as far as infrastructure at any park facility, if the infrastructure is in place, yes, we do use it. And one of the long-term goals for Glendale Water and Power is to start looking in the future in developing more infrastructure. As you could imagine, it could be in the millions of dollars. So we'll be working on applying for grants to start thinking for the future and planning for more delivery of recycled water to other facilities.
Is Glen Oaks Boulevard gray water, the median?
Yes, absolutely. Glen Oaks Boulevard, the stretch from Brand all the way to Burbank, along with some of the sides that we have a little bit of turf, some of those green space, as we call them, is irrigated with recycled water, as well as the Brand Boulevard south of Colorado to Chevy Chase, as well as Glendale Avenue, that large median from Monterey all the way up to Glen Oaks, that is also recycled water, gray water.
Well, thank you for that report. Next.
Next, we have 8D, monthly activity reports. At 1, workforce development.
President Fowd, members of the commission, if I may, the monthly activity reports are pretty routine, so in the interest of time, if you are amenable, the only presentation I'd like to make is on park services. We have a very quick photo montage which gives you a very good idea as to the work that the Park Services staff does, which otherwise would be difficult to explain in narrative. And I think the pictures really help us grasp the scope of what they do on a regular daily basis out in the parks and trying to take care of the parks. So if it's okay with you, we can dispense with oral presentations on the monthly activity reports.
I'm more than happy for routine things like this to dispense with the oral reports and just focus on what's new and different.
And if I may, President Fuad, what we'll be presenting are activities from the months of January, February, and March. In February, we presented some of the projects that were conducted in December. Henceforth, even the written report highlights 3 months of activities for you. I will not get into those because I believe there's about 40 pages of work orders. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. We'd like to highlight some of the projects that we were able to capture pictures of in the last 3 months. It'll be some improvements done at Brand Park, Casa Adobe, Emerald Isle, Fremont Park, Lower Shoal Park, Mayor's, Pacific Park, and Pelanconi. And some of these we've eliminated several pictures to keep it at a very reasonable number. So at Brand Park, near the tea house, between the tea house and Doctor's house, what you see is a planting. We had a shrubbery to split the two, the tea house and the Brand, the tea house and the Doctor's house. We had an area to have it split up. You don't see the pre-picture. Some of the vegetation was dying out. It was in severe stress. So what we decided to do is clean that whole area up and be able to remove everything. Long-term, our goal is to communicate with the Glendale Historic Society and the Friends of the Shoshayan Group to see what they like to see instead. At this time, we removed all the shrubbery, leveled everything back in, and after leveling, we seeded We put in the topsoil and just watered it down. Currently, this is the plan, but going forward, we'll be talking to the two groups and see what they like to see, whether they would still like to see the two split up, so that if there's a wedding going on in one site, the open house folks won't just going to start trickling down to the wedding. So we'll find out what they want and work with the groups as to what else we can put in this place. And I believe the seeds are growing as we speak. Second was at Casa Adobe. This is the south end of the park, just on the outside of the parking lot. We had a dirt area that we decided to spruce up a little bit, so we came up with a plan to put in some drought-tolerant planting, and that whole stretch on the south side near the parking lot was replanted with drought-tolerant planting and mulched. And these are a couple of pictures of the completed project in those areas. It cleans it up. Dirt doesn't look as beautiful. You mulch it with a couple of plants. It does really dress up the facility. And this is popular for reservations as well, so we want to make sure for photos, wedding photos, or other reservations, the facility looks good for our community. At Emerald Isle, there were a lot of little projects that were conducted. I mean, we don't get much of a rainstorm, but we do have these ditches that kind of transform the water, storm water, and typically once a year we tend to clean them up. This one was at Emerald Isle, as well as some other sites. And staff cleans that out annually before the major rainstorms that we get. A lot of shrubbery that were dead, and just a matter of cleaning up the dead shrubs in these areas. What you notice in the top picture here, next to the next to the picnic table is the roots from the tree that tend to eventually grow through the ground, and it could be tripping hazards and elevated curbs for the concrete pad over there. So in a few of our sites, we've started filling them in, either by dirt and or mulch, depending on what is most accessible and useful for the area. So you see the picture below has it mulched and a lot safer than the tripping hazard you see in the first picture. You'll see this as a trend on some of our sites. We were able to capture a couple of the facilities for you. And this is a picture of what Emerald Isle looks like now. Very beautiful site. If you haven't visited, truly one of the gems that's hidden up in the Emerald Isles. Fremont Park, this is the dirt area, the soccer field area that Teresa Alexandria referred to earlier. What you notice from this picture, it is dirt. Over the past few years, we've having the difficulty to throw natural grass in areas that people play soccer. We had kind of committed to letting the staff, the people play there and letting it be dirt. But as we look at it, it could be, health hazard when you have dirt people playing and the dust that it creates. So as a section, we decided to go forth and go ahead and turf this area and try and put it annually, make it a cycle of trying to regrow grass. Yes, it may last 3 to 4 months, but at least we'll give the users of this area something to look forward to, something to be able to play on. So with that in mind, we started tearing what was there, some very little dirt, readjusted the irrigation, started leveling and grading get it ready for seeding. And ultimately, once everything was laid out and leveled, we brought in some seed, topsoil, seeded, top dressed, and I have a current picture of this, what it looks like as we speak from that dirt. There's still some...
Doing artificial turf, I'm confused.
This is currently the plan because the master planning is not completed for this site, and because neither group nor commission nor council had an opportunity to review that as a plan going forward, and the likelihood of the master planning to be completed and put in play as far as construction could be years from today, we figured for the time being, for the users of this facility, we'd like to try and give them grass because it is a very active Saturday, Sunday use at this site. That is Fremont Park. Moving on to Lower Shoal. Lower Shoal, there is this upper area where the former... I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
President Fott, if I may interject, and I apologize, Coco, but you just observed the work that goes into reseeding this lawn and refurbishing it to bring it back to condition that the community could take advantage of it and use it and play soccer on it. And you're absolutely right. All of that effort and all of those resources will be saved once we are able to replace this area with a formal artificial turf field. So that's all the time and effort that will be saved once we're able to get an artificial turf field. But as Mr. Panosian said, in the master planning, that's 2 or 3 years away. In the meantime, it sits there dormant, and at least for 4 or 5 months, it could be used for soccer play until it turns back into dirt.
I was going to say it's going to go back to dirt.
Yes.
Yeah, it will.
Yes, it will. Thank you, Mr. Duran. At Lower Shoal Park, this area right here is at the up. There's two parking lots at Lower Shoal Park, if you're familiar with it. The one on the most northern west side of the facility has a little area just north of it that is not accessible by the public. It is an area where in the past was used for camping. But over the years, it has become an area for storage of things that were removed from parks, broken equipment, and or benches and bleachers, as you note here. And it became an eyesore nuisance, and it became a hot spot, as we refer to. Kids would get up there and start using it for unwanted activity in a facility. And working with PD closely, and based on the peer requests we've received, police department, they asked us to clean up some of the shrubbery, open up the area so police cars can actually come in as they're cruising, be able to see better in this upper area. And with all the debris and the materials that were placed in that be removed, kind of opens it up so they don't have anywhere to hide if the police do come to do their patrols. So our staff took on the challenge, cleared significant amount of debris and brush shrubbery from this area to the point where this is what it looked like after we were done with the project.
So do you still have like the broken benches there, or all that was removed?
Everything has been removed. Everything has been removed. Whatever was recyclable was sent to recyclables. Whatever was dirt, debris was sent to debris. But this is what it looks like now. Police department folks truly appreciated this effort. Now when they do patrol, they can get up this way and be able to see more clearly as to what is going on, the activities. Mayor's Bicentennial, this is another park where you notice right by the picnic area here, the seats, the curb and the trees, the roots. This is near the walkway. There are several areas at this location where the trees are overgrown. And so going forward, staff brought in some dirt to level it and close the areas so there's no tripping hazards. This doesn't do it justice because after they're done, they were able to wash off the walkway onto the dirt again. And here's one area where it's filled in. The tripping hazard has been removed, another picnic area. This is the playground where they tilled the existing playground 5-bar to break it up a little bit more and make it softer to extend the life. Here's what it looks like, make it more safe for the kids. Going forward, this is one area of the picnic, another picnic area where it was leveled off, soil was brought in to have it level, and it was seeded. So this area was kind of fenced off and seeded. And you see the before and after picture as far as what the tripping hazards would be. And we're hoping the next couple of months we start growing some grass in this area and keep it safe for the public. Also, Mayor's Park, if you're familiar with it, has a long driveway to get up to the park. There's a lot of trees and shrubbery that grow in that area. There was quite a bit of cleanup. We reported on this annually, but the cleanup resulted in truck full load of debris that were hauled out of that one driveway. And at Pacific Park, the playground project, as you know, was completed a couple of months back. As part of the project, we went from the playground loose 5-bar material, which is the recycled treated mulch material that people refer to for safety surfacing, went from that to the rubberized safety surfacing. With that, there used to be a perimeter seating area that was utilized by the public. With the rubberized surfacing that leveled it off, kept it at the same height as that seating. Now, what it did, though, is on the other side of the playground, it put a drop of 18 inches or so, which was unsafe for the public, for the kids playing. So in order for us to open the park, as soon as the project was completed, we had to level that off to the point where if kids do tend to run past the playground area, they'll be safe. It'll be more level. And so what we ended up doing is brought in soil. And as you note here, I do not have a pre-picture to give you the idea, but the post-picture, this is how the sand was leveling it off to a higher level, making it more flush with a little bit of a slope going down. And once the guys were done with putting in the dirt and compacting and brought in DG, so now we have decomposed granite at this site, very level, just with a slight slope going down towards the walkways. And here's the final look. It is now safe, and we're able to open the park the day as it was originally intended on a Saturday, 2 days after the project was ready for the public. We're able to complete this project. And this is an opposite view. Now, there's still, this area right here is also a bench that, parents could still sit at to watch their kids play. And so it is safer and readily accessible for the people to use. Pelinconi Park, this is the ball field area. This is deep core aerifying. It helps the turf, the compaction, and by aerifying it and taking the cores out, we let the turf breathe. And so as we water and fertilize, they do tend to last longer. It strengthens the turf. So we completed that project in the outfield area where they also in that area where there's dirt, we've tried to seed. With soccer play, again, it tends to be difficult to grow grass. But baseball season now, the focus was more in the infield and the baseball area inside the fencing as well. So staff came in, did the normal annual leveling and reshuffling of the dirt, and ultimately came up with a final look, clean cut, the perimeter and the field ready for use. And that concludes some of the projects we had completed the last couple of months.
Very nice. Any questions or comments?
Very nice.
I spent some time at Griffith Park, and it is night and day, you folks versus LA Park, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Beautiful parks.
I think, is that our final item? I guess, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
President Fad, if I may, before we adjourn, Mr. Panosian and I, in cooperation with some of the other city departments, are working on a drought response plan. And I think at the next commission meeting, we'll be prepared to share with you what our department's drought response plan is, and then in relationship to what the other departments might be doing. And I think you would find that very helpful. And it'll also outline what the community can expect, any difference community can expect in our parks or the medians in the ensuing months and maybe longer term, because things may very well begin to look a little different. We're even looking at the City Hall campus and looking at areas where we would recommend pulling out the turf and replacing it with mulch and drought-tolerant plantings. So the community can expect to be seeing a lot more of that, and our department will be right in the middle of everything and will be very much in the mix. So we'd like to give you a report on that and get some feedback and approval of the plan, and then formalize it with the City Council.
Were you given a target reduction?
Is it still 20% or?
Yes, the President Fuad, the executive order asked for a 25% reduction in water consumption, which is.
I saw, they broke out a greater detail. It's 20% for Glendale, but I'm just wondering if you folks, parks given a 20% or some different number based on, because you're the park department. No?
At this point, we are not at that level we're not that far ahead to identify what our expected reductions are going to be. One of the projects we had taken on was sports complex, as you recall, our last presentation, removal of turf and mulching it through the Metropolitan Water District program, where we received the rebate for removing the turf. We are identifying several other areas within parks that can fall in that same and benefit from that same program, and those are some of the areas that we'll be presenting to you in the coming month or months as to options going forward. We do have the goal of reducing water in as much of the areas as we can, reasonably possible, but at this time hasn't been a specific percentage reduction requested of the Parks Department at this point.
Without getting ahead of what's going on, are gray water plantings, are going to be exempt because it's gray water?
Yes, President Fuad, currently the gray water is exempt from this executive order as far as the medians go. I would think the same would apply for the parks, but our goal is just public perception of us being good stewards of the environment and good stewards of resources. We're looking at overall pictures and long-term what we want to do in those areas as well.
I appreciate that, but I hope you don't have a gratuitous brown spots at Brown Park because you have water to keep it greener, so I just mentioned that.
That's why I would like to present you with the plan so that everyone's on board.
And it is a delicate balance that we're trying to accomplish here, a very delicate balance between quality of life issues and water conservation. So we're on high gear at this point.
Very good. If there's nothing else, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
We don't need a motion.
Don't need a motion? Well, then we're adjourned.
Thank you.